Okay, we'll start.
Ji sir, ji sir.
Good afternoon. Namaste. So now we are on the, what do you call, 21st Sutra. And the 21st Sutra is tīvra-samvegānām āsannaḥ. Tīvra we could take as intensity, extreme. We've taken the meanings there, yes. Samveg. Now this is two words, sam and a veg. Veg we can say gati, motion, speed, and samveg from with. You can say we can say in a harmonious way. That is intensity with speed, but harmoniously. If that is done, then the, what do you call, the goal which is yoga, the goal is nearby. Asana means nearby. It comes from the root to sit nearby. Right? So here, what we did in the last sutra is that we saw that Patanjali is saying for others. Did you put the lamp?
Just switch off the video for 1 minute.
Okay, just we're switching off for a minute. Is it better now? Okay.
Ji sir.
Right. So the normal meaning would be that those who go through those 5 methods which we talked about last time, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, right, Samadhi, and Prajna, all these 5 methods, or if you take them as one method which leads from Shraddha to Prajna, whichever way we took them last time. For those, if their, what do you call, effort, that is, there is intensity and there is speed or right motion with harmony, then the goal of yoga is near for them, asana, it is near for them. And before we really go into this, we can, just as a general, in a general way, say that this can be applicable for any endeavor in life. It doesn't have to just be yoga. It could be any endeavor in life. I may be wanting to start a new business or build a factory or something. So what is my intensity in doing it? Is there harmony in the way I'm going forward, in the speed which I'm taking forward? Then the goal of building that factory is near, it is imminent, it's going to happen, right? So in a way we can say that this is something which is, which can be applied to every endeavor in life. tīvra-samveg, I always remember Tavariaji Sahib, and he would keep on saying that you must have a fiery aspiration, right? tīvra-samveg, a fiery aspiration. Says otherwise nothing is going to happen unless you can make that, he used to say, unless you can make that super effort. In life, we have normal efforts. But he said in spirituality, normal efforts don't work. You have to make that super effort. if you really want to move forward. So, so we have to see, are we really putting in the right amount of effort? So he's talking about a state of mind called tīvra-samvegānām, or fiery aspiration. And those who have this fiery aspiration, he used to say that when iron is heated, it becomes red, and when iron becomes super hot, from red it turns to white. Unless you have that super hot heat, he said, you cannot walk on this path of spirituality. Right? Now, he has translated this sutra as the attainment of this stage of spiritual consciousness, that is sampragnat samadhi, samadhi with knowledge. We've been going through those sutras, is rapid for those whose will is intensely alive. So he's talking about something called will over here. And we must understand that there are, what kind of will do we have? Do we really have the will to do? There is will of, in Gurdjieff's language, we can say there is will of the machine, and there's will of the essence, or there's will of the soul, and there's will of the ego. The will of the ego is called as willpower. What we need in life is willpower, right? But on the path of spirituality, we need something called spiritual will, a different kind of will. So there is, using Gurdjieff's terms, we will say there's will of the machine, will of the ego, and there's will of the essence, that is will of the soul. Now, one thing which we must observe in ourselves is, are our moods controlled by the state of the machine or the state of the ego? If I'm comfortable, if the machine is comfortable, I am in a good mood. If somebody is praising my ego, I'm in a good mood. But if somebody is criticizing me, finding faults in me, then I'm in a bad mood. So this is a practice which all of us must observe within ourselves, is that what controls my mood? And we'll see that all our moods from morning to evening are all mechanical moods. They come automatically, and they depend upon the state of the machine, or what we can call the state of the body-brain system, right? I'm in a state of dislike, my mood is bad. Somebody has not come on time, my mood is bad. There is a lot of traffic, my mood is bad. The weather is bad, my mood is bad. Some people are not agreeing to what I say, my mood is bad. So my mood is always being controlled by something else. Because there's traffic, I am in a bad mood. And this means that I have no control over my own will. My will is is a mechanical victim of my changing states by changing moods, by changing psychological states. My will is a total victim of those changing psychological states. So the whole effort of the spiritual seeker, of the student, is to awaken the will of the essence and use the will of the machine just in places where it is necessary to be used. That the will of the ego has to be calmed down, right? I mean, it has to be used where it's necessary. I may be running a shop or something, or I may be running a business. And when I go and sit in my business, I may need a little to do my stuff there. But that ego will should not control all my moods, right? So I hope I'm coming across here. Yeah. So we must observe this, how our moods change from morning to evening, and they keep on changing, and they keep on changing dependent upon something else, the will of the machine. Now, I don't know if we remember the 14th Sutra, Tatra Sthito Yatna Abhyasa. Yatna, the effort. In this moment, if I am not making any spiritual effort, then I'm falling down the ladder of consciousness. So just now you're sitting and listening to me, but if you are making an effort of observing yourself at the same time, or you're making an effort to look at your breathing at the same time, or you're making an effort to breathe in rhythm at the same time, or you're making an effort to remember yourself at the same time, then with life effort of looking or listening to me, you're also making the spiritual effort at that moment. But if you're only making the life effort of listening to me and not making any spiritual effort, then nothing is static on the spiritual ladder. Nothing can remain in the same place on the spiritual ladder. If we are not making effort, either we are going down. If we are making effort, we are rising up the ladder. So this is a constant effort without any, what you call, intermissions in this effort. So on this ladder of consciousness, we can either be rising or we can be falling, but we are never static. It's not possible. And all of us, I'm very, very sure, have phases in our lives where we are so absorbed in life that we forget to make any spiritual effort at all. I know all of us must have gone through such phases, even though we are spiritual seekers, all of us, but definitely we do go through such phases where we suddenly see that we are not making any effort at all in those phases. And we are so identified in those phases, we must, in retrospect, look at those phases and see that we were so identified in those phases that we forgot to make any effort. We forgot to observe ourselves. We forgot to watch our breathing. We forgot to remember ourselves. And it happened so automatically. Now, effort is of two kinds. There is conscious effort and there is mechanical effort. All life effort is mechanical effort. I think we had gone through this some time ago, that life moves in a horizontal line from birth to death. The events of life, one after the other, they move in a well, the line is not very horizontal. They move in a horizontal line from birth to death. All efforts we make in life have something to do with the future, something to do with the past. That is, if I'm making an effort to earn money, then I'm making an effort that tomorrow I'm going to get some money. I'm putting in the effort today, right? Or if I made a mistake in the past, maybe if I insulted you yesterday, then I'm trying to remedy that today. So all efforts, life efforts, are on this horizontal line. Either there is reward in the future, either there is punishment in the future, or there is some guilt of the past or a mistake in the past, which keeps me stuck to this horizontal line of time, right? All efforts concerning this horizontal line of time, right, are mechanical efforts. They have nothing to do with spirituality. Please understand, anything done for tomorrow, anything done for tomorrow. I may change my clothes from a beautiful t-shirt to a what do you call, orange gown. Has nothing to do with spirituality. I may shift from my home to move in an ashram and live over there. Nothing to do with spirituality. Anything done on this plane of time has nothing to do with spirituality. Spirituality is concerned with being, our inner being, and for that we have to move into another time, the vertical dimension of time. This vertical dimension of time, it penetrates every moment of this horizontal dimension. Every small moment is penetrated by this vertical dimension. The more I rise in consciousness, the more I rise in this vertical dimension of time. So spiritual effort has nothing to do with life, because life is moving on a horizontal plane. It has nothing to do with whether I have money or I don't have money, whether my wife listens to me or my wife does not listen to me. It has nothing to do with all that. Spiritual effort is in a different dimension of time, right? So have I made an effort in this moment to rise in consciousness, right? I may say, hey, come over here. So that is maybe a very mechanical way of saying it. I say, wait a minute. And I say, do you mind coming over here? For that, I had to pause. I had to bring in consciousness. I had to rise a little bit in the vertical dimension of time. That effort is not necessary. You're going to come here. Even if I shout at you, you're going to come here, whether I tell you to come in a beautiful way. The point is that changing the way I said it made me rise a little in this ladder of consciousness. This effort is not necessary for this line of time for life. This effort is a luxury, right? We do it for our spiritual practices. So are we making this conscious effort each moment of our lives? Because we are doing everything from morning to evening. We go in the kitchen, we make tea, we do this. So everything we are doing in this plane of time, at the same moment, are we doing a little bit to rise up from this plane of time? Now, supposing the teaching tells us don't express negative emotions. Now, I have to do this out of understanding that I want to rise in consciousness. That is why I'm stopping my negative emotions. I'm not throwing them upon someone. But I'm sitting in front of my boss, and my boss is a very powerful person. There's no way I can get angry on him. So I'm not expressing any negative emotions. Of course, when I go back to my wife, I'm going to shout and scream at my boss, right? What a useless guy he is, right? So that not expressing of negative emotions, I'm doing for future, for the line of time. I'm not doing it for spirituality. So this has to be understood. We may be doing the same thing, but the motive behind it is very important. Am I doing it to rise in consciousness, or am I doing it for reward or punishment? And this has to be very, very clear with us. So real effort, that is to remember ourselves. But to do that, we must first observe ourselves over a long period of time. Now, the effort which we make in spirituality is in two directions. One is the direction of knowledge. The other is the direction of being. So I gather a knowledge that don't express negative emotions. The teaching tells me don't express negative emotions, right? But I go home and my wife has not prepared tea for me and I get irritated. And then I want to watch a show on TV, but at that time, a moment a friend comes to meet me with his family, right? And again, I get irritated. Again, I get upset. Again, I get angry. So I have taken the life's teachings as knowledge, but I have not implemented those teachings of yoga in my being. In my being, I'm the same person who gets irritated all the time. Nothing has changed for me. Even with all that knowledge, nothing has changed for me. And this is very, very important. Now, knowledge is information. It is held by a very superficial part of our minds. It is when I start practicing that knowledge that the knowledge becomes understanding. It goes into a deeper part of my mind. Right? So every spiritual saying I have to put into practice. If I say that, please practice self-observation, from morning to evening, have I spent 20 minutes in self-observation? If I've not spent 20 minutes in self-observation, then intellectually I have understood self-observation, but I have not put it into practice. I have not really understood. It has not gone in my being. So effort in life, on the spiritual path, there are two kinds of effort. One is to gather the real knowledge, go to a real teacher, go to a real teaching, and we gather the knowledge, and then we start implementing that knowledge in our lives. And if we cannot implement that knowledge in our lives, then it just remains on a superficial part of our minds. It does not become a part of our being. We don't live that knowledge. And if we don't live that knowledge, then we don't understand that knowledge. What does this mean? What does this mean? What comes in between knowledge and being? What is the factor which comes between knowledge and being? So I say that please don't express your negative emotions, knowledge. But you go home, right? And somebody has left the light on, you express your negative emotions, you're wasting electricity, etc. We do not have the will in us to will the knowledge into being. We must be able to will the knowledge, that will, that power of will, not willpower, that inner spiritual power of will, that what I have learned from my teacher, what I have learned from my teaching, do I have the will to put it into action? Do I have the will to really live it? And if I don't have the will to live it, then I must first work upon my will. I must first work upon creating will within me. And it's very sad that sometimes I look back, and I've been teaching since 1994. So that's 28 years of teaching. And people do the practices. But when it comes down to living, nothing has changed. They still get upset in small matters. They still get angry on small things. They still, hurt their wives by saying words as such in such a certain way. Nothing has changed in the being. But if you ask them a question about the work, if you ask them a question about spirituality, they'll explain everything much better than I can also explain, right? So here you can see that there are two sides to the person. One, he has gathered a lot of knowledge and maybe being very intellectually a very powerful person, right? But he cannot live that knowledge. He's lacked the will to put that knowledge into being, to put that knowledge into practice. All our actions are not from knowledge. All our actions are from being, from our inner state, what we are. Now, we must understand over here that when we apply the knowledge in action. Supposing today my teacher told me that you have to do these exercises for 3 minutes each exercise. Supposing he has given me 3 exercises to do, 3 minutes each exercise. Now I start doing the exercises. So I've taken the knowledge of the teacher and I've started to put it into action. I'm willing it into action. Now, at the moment of putting it into action, what is my psychological state? If my psychological state is of dislike, then it is a wrong application of will. I'll try to explain this. Supposing Mr. Tavariaji says that you do these 3 exercises, and I go home and I start the first exercise. And after 2 minutes, I look at my clock, my watch. When is 3 minutes getting over? Can you see? Now I'm forcibly doing these exercises. Right? When I'm forcibly doing these exercises, it is willpower, it is not spiritual will. I hope I'm coming across in this, right? In the application, the point of application of spiritual will, there is enjoyment, there is a delight in applying the will, getting the teaching from the teacher and applying it in our normal lives. There is not it has to be done. No. We will it because we love to do it. That is, without love, without delight, without joy, it is willpower, it is life will. And we are doing the same exercises. Can you see? The same teachings of the teacher we are putting into practice, but it is done with the wrong will, it is done with life will, it is not done with spiritual will. And this is very important, that where there is spiritual will, there is joy, there is a happiness, there is a delight in, I take delight in doing some work for you. If I come to your home and you say, help me lay the table, I enjoy helping you lay the table. There is in that spiritual will, there is a delight to do. Yes, we choose to do it, but we don't force ourselves to do it, right? So life will is to fulfill our desires. The will of life, that is the will of the ego, the will of the machine, its only aim is to keep the essence, the soul, in a state of identification, right? And it keeps on by bringing in one desire after the other, one problem in life after the other, one worry in life after the other. It keeps on, the kaleidoscope keeps on moving forward, and the essence never wakes up, it never uses its own will. Now here there is a catch-22 situation, and we must understand this. Life will, the will of the ego, it has what we call in the Mahabharata as Ichha Mrityu, voluntary death. For anyone moving on the spiritual path, it is their ego which decides that now we want to move in the spiritual path. So, and the ego knows that its own death is coming on the spiritual path. So it has to take in this Ichha Mrityu, it has to apply this Ichha Mrityu. So that is why Bhishma is regarded as the ego in the Mahabharata. He represents the ego within us, because the ego cannot die unless it itself decides to die, right? So the first step in the spiritual direction is the step of Ichha Mrityu, voluntary death. The ego itself decides, now enough is enough. There is something behind this life. There is another state of egolessness, and that can only be achieved if I am willing to go, if I am willing to die. Of course, he keeps on coming back as we walk on the path, but this initial decision to look for a teaching, to look for a teacher, right? It has to come from our normal life ego. And the life ego says, now I'm walking on a path where I'm willing to die. I know at one point it's going to be the death of the life ego. So there is the will of the machine, the will of the ego. And till the will of the ego decides, nothing can work. Then there's the will of the essence. This is an emotional will. And this is the will which it controls our attention. So whenever we are practicing controlling our attention, we are awakening the will of the soul. So even when we are, say, studying for an exam, right? Those moments when we are controlling attention, right? Paying attention to something, it is the soul which is, trying to take charge of attention. Attention is the property of the soul. Attention has been kidnapped by the ego. And it does this by giving attractions to the five senses. I go to a store, I see something beautiful, my attention goes. So attention, which was the property of the soul, is kidnapped by the ego, seduced by something which is lying in the store. Right? And so the property of ego attention is that it is seduced all the time. And the property of soul attention, it is trying to, soul will is trying to control the attention. Right? Beyond this is the will of the spirit, the will of the Atma. And the will of the Atma is to remain a witness in every situation in life. So we have three wills: the will of the machine, the will of the ego, the will which fulfills all our desires, the will which fulfills all the, cravings of the senses, the will which fulfills all the inner cravings also. Then we have the will of the soul. The will of the soul can do two things. It can control attention and it can hold the presence of the spirit. And when it holds the presence of the spirit, the Atma, the will of the Atma comes into play, the will of the spirit comes into play, just to remain a witness in spite of everything. It could be somebody's death, it is a witness. If somebody's marriage, it is a witness. It is always a witness. It cannot use its will anywhere else. So these are three kinds of will within us. Now, when we go to sleep at night, please, all of us should ask ourselves the question, have we used our soul will anywhere today? As we grow older, there's nothing to study actually. We don't control our attention at all. We just live a life where our attention is attracted all the time, seduced all the time. So, and have we practiced? You see, the Atma is a witness, but leading to that witness is first the practice of non-identifying, self-observation, self-remembering, self-witnessing. These are the steps by which we must go. Have we practiced anything concerned with non-identifying today? Have I gone to a shop? Have I gone to a store? And suddenly my attention has been attracted by something. And I say, hey, hang on, pause, try to bring the attention back try to understand that this is something, which is very attractive in the store, and it is stealing my attention. And when it is stealing my attention, only the will of the machine can work. And when I bring my attention back, I'm trying to control my attention, then it is soul will which I'm awakening. I'm putting the will of the, subduing the will of the machine, and I'm awakening the will of the soul. So, and try to do this at least for 1 hour every day. 1 hour every day. That is, you do the normal things, but see that you don't allow your attention to be seduced. Don't allow the machine to take away your attention. Try to hold the attention with the will of the soul. And in this way, we will be awakening the will of the soul. And this is done in the small practices of life every day. Or make a small promise to yourself that for 1 hour, I will not find fault with anything. Right? And if you find fault, then maybe 1 more hour. Punish yourself. 1 more hour. Right? And that doesn't mean you go in a room and sit in darkness in meditation. It's very easy to remain in that state. Please put on the TV and watch TV, and watch the monkey up here, and immediately it'll come on TV that one minister is doing some corruption, and tell that monkey, don't find fault in this. Right? That is a more powerful meditation than going in the room and sitting in silence. Right? So do this. Practice awakening the will of the soul. Practice non-identifying. Right? You can see anger is pulling you. Say no to the anger. Say, I don't want to go with you. You can see something is pulling your attention. Say no to it. Right? This practice saying of no is the practice of non-identifying. And please do this 1 hour with real delight. Don't do it because, again, we have talked about it over here and we make it a new mechanical practice or something, right? Try to see the hungers of our centers, especially the hungers of self-love. And we can't see this sitting in meditation somewhere. Supposing a friend comes to meet us and that friend is talking negatively about some other third person who I also know and you also know, both of us know, right? And after some time, we find ourselves identifying with that person, with the friend's negative talk. Thank you. We see ourselves identifying with the friend's negative talk. And then from inside, there is this hunger of our self-love. We want to say something negative about that person. Pause over here. Don't fulfill that hunger inside. Right? Don't, that comes from our self-love, that hunger. So try to observe these things in normal life. Now, Gurdjieff says we have many eyes within us. Try to observe the wills of this many eyes within us, right? One of my favorite places of observation, because usually I watch a good serial before going to sleep at night. So, and then as soon as the serial gets over, then there's this eye inside which says, why not one more episode? Why not one more episode? Can you see how it is seducing my attention, right? And then another eye will come, but you have to wake up in the morning. You get up very early, and if you one more episode means at least 1 more hour, etc. So suddenly there is a struggle between 2 eyes within us. One wants to see 1 episode, and one wants to wake up in the morning, and the one whose will is stronger will neutralize the other will, and I'll do exactly what that I wants. And it is usually the the mechanical I which is more powerful than the work I. Now this Mr. Tavaria called neutral will, he used to call this, that the I of one will, the will of one I has neutralized the will of another I. So try to see these different I's and we'll be shocked. All our different I's have different wills, right? And one I wants to make money in the stock market, but one I does not want to spend so much time on the stock market. He wants to spend more time on spiritual study, etc., etc. And all these I's are fighting with each other inside, right? Now, if all the wills are fighting inside, then we don't really have any real will. We just have the mechanical will of the machine. And that is what we follow in our lives. And as we grow older, we become a total victim of that mechanical will of the machine. Now, real will is independent of what others think. Now, supposing I've taken up a project and I'm moving on that project, and say the project involves, say, 10 steps, and I've completed 7 steps, and you come to meet me and you praise the 7 steps which I have taken, or you say you are doing such a good job and you're working so diligently, etc., as people say in life, right? Now, if that increases my will to take the next 3 steps, then it is the wrong will. It is that will which can be influenced by others. See, so we have to see which will we are using at what time. This will is very good for our life aims, all the aims of life, to earn money, to live a comfortable life, etc. But this will cannot work in the spiritual field. Real will is a form of waiting, It is, in Gurdjieff's language, he used to call it as active patience. Patiently waiting. Not what I want to do, what he wants to do through me. His will wants to do through me. I is the machine, he is the essence, he is the soul. And we should see this when big shocks come in our life, when most of the things are very scattered in our lives, right? Sometimes a big shock scatters everything in our life, upsets them. At that point, just an active patience, waiting for things to come into order, everything to be placed in order. And life has its own rhythm. Life has its own harmony. And to be able to sense that rhythm and harmony and to allow it to work, that is the beginning of real will. Real will comes from the emotional center. And as long as we have a very disturbed emotional center, we have a dry emotional center, we can't feel for anyone else, it's very difficult to awaken real will. Now, we must practice. So like, just make small efforts, small aims, small results. Sometimes when those results come together, they become something very big. Now just make a small aim. Say you go for a walk. say you will walk in this rhythm. And for some time you will be walking in that rhythm. That is, you're paying attention, you're controlling attention. At some point, something will seduce your attention, attract it away. The minute your attention is attracted away, you will fall back into your old pattern of walking. And try to observe this. This is a very simple exercise. Very, very simple exercise. Try to sense that how long did you forget, and when you remembered and you came back to your proper way of walking, see if you can go through the drift and come back to the start of the drift, and again practice this. Or you're drinking tea, say you drink tea with your right hand all the time. Start drinking tea with your left hand. Do something else, read the newspaper or whatever. At some point, your attention will be what you call seduced by some news in the newspaper. And automatically, instead of your left hand going for your tea, your right hand will go for the tea. And you will see that this is the state of awakened machine. This is the state of a sleeping machine. Now, just these small things, if we can practice, we will realize that what is the major obstacle? What is the major obstacle to waking up? It is old patterns. I mean, these are just patterns of the moving center. I mean, there are patterns in the emotional center, patterns of the instinctive center, patterns in the intellectual center. But suddenly we've realized a big law over here. It is sanskar, these old patterns which take us back into mechanicality, which take us back into mechanicalness. And if we realize that, then we'll slowly come to a stage where we will see that the pattern is seducing our attention, taking us into mechanicalness, and we'll pause over there and we'll remain in the whatever little awakened state we are in. Try to see how the different eyes control us. Every time one eye becomes the master, how the will of that eye controls us. Now, I do a lot of writing, so I make a decision to sit down to write, and over the years I've observed this so many times that when we are writing, it is the will of the intellectual center which is trying to put us into writing. And as soon as we sit down to write, the instinctive center controls all the energy of the body. And the instinctive center thinks that writing is a waste of time. Of course, now we don't write, we type on the computer. So it feels it is a waste of time. So it creates a situation where we have done some work for 10 minutes and suddenly we start yawning. Now, 10 minutes ago, we were not feeling sleepy when we decided to, now later on one day we are going to study the law of octaves and we will see this is a gap in the original octave which I had decided, but we won't go into that now. Now, if we get over that gap, right? And we may have our own ways of getting over that gap. Then we may continue writing for another half an hour or so. But if we give in to that gap, the instinctive center sends us a few yawns and we start feeling sleepy. And then this instinctive center is very tricky. It will immediately send a message inside that if you have a cup of tea, you won't feel sleepy. So after 10 minutes of writing these notes, I put them down on the table and I go to the kitchen to make a cup of tea. Now, when I go to make a cup of tea, I say that the kettle is boiling. Might as well put on the TV for a minute. See, now from the instinctive center, I've gone to an eye of the emotional center has seduced my attention. And why am I putting on the TV for a minute? Because last night I was watching the cricket match and I went to sleep early and I didn't see the result of the cricket match. So I want to know whether India won or not. So I'm putting on the TV to see whether India has won or not. Then by then I made my cup of tea and I see that India did win the match. Very good. And then I just, what do you call, switch the channel, right? And I switched the channel and I see, oh, this movie I've been wanting to see for the past 6 months and it's on now only, right? It's on now only. And there's a cup of tea in hand, there's a movie in front of you. Who is going to write these stupid notes, right? These boring notes, right? Get down to watching the movie. So I sit down to watch the movie, and of course, in a movie, an advertisement comes in between, and then the Instinctive Center, another eye comes, that how can you watch the movie just with a cup of tea? You need a packet of wafers. So can you see? I said I'm going to sit down to write these notes for 1 hour. And from where I went everywhere, did nothing. This is just an example. But this is, we must practice observing ourselves in this. How every moment our wills keep on changing. How every moment our desires keep on changing. And all these desires fighting against a different desire. We really are just what do you call, a multitude of desires, a multitude of eyes. And many times I have seen, I'm just adding something over here. You know, you can give the benefit of the doubt, what we call in English, not a very good phrase to use. Now, if the movie was a new movie, which I had not seen before, and I give the benefit of the doubt, chalo, that maybe that, what do you call, Star Movies is not going to play this movie again, and I have to see it now, right? But many times it is an old movie which we have watched before, and we just repeat watching that. Can you see? From mechanicalness, we go into more mechanicalness. And it is here where we must observe. With this fragmented will, we cannot move on the spiritual path. How are we going to move on the spiritual path? So we must create a will within us, which frees us from the small whims and small desires which dictate our life, which make us a slave of life. Now, one of the very good things which we can do is that sometimes we have to do either this or that. We have to choose, right? So, supposing I need to write new notes on something, and at the same time I see my room is in a mess completely, and I only have this time, this half an hour. Either I write the notes for half an hour or I clean up my room. So look inside and be authentic in this. Which one do I dislike more? Right? Now, if I dislike arranging my room, then do that first. Right? Don't do something which you like. Do something which you dislike, because you want to create will within ourselves, right? So these are small experiments which we can do. One of my favorite ones is that when standing in airport lines, right? And of course, 3 years I've not been traveling, but maybe this July I'll go to the US. And I know that everywhere you go, you're standing in lines. The Americans love to stand in line. And there you have to look at this monkey up here. look at this monkey, and create will, enjoy the standing in line, enjoy the waiting, and sometimes it's a couple of hours, right? But bring delight to that situation. Then we create a kind of spiritual will within us. Another thing is work with the instinctive center. Suddenly I'm feeling very, very hungry, right? And there's a hamburger shop just opposite my home, right? Don't run to the burger stall. Don't run to the burger stall. See, I was with Vimla ji for a number of years. She was like my guru. And she used to say that, Rajan, see, animals, if they are hungry, they are hungry. They can't fast. And I'll tell you in Hindi because I want to repeat her words. Bhook lagna prakritik hai. I hope you understand. Bhook is a Gujarati word. I don't know if Hindi you understand. Bhook lagna prakritik hai. Bhook ka sanyam karna manusyata hai. Right? It's difficult to put in English. But sanyam does not mean control. Huh? Sanyam does not, I control my anger. It doesn't mean I control my anger. I take delight in controlling my anger. Sanyam means I take delight in controlling my anger. So this we must see, that whenever we are suddenly very hungry and that hunger has kidnapped our attention completely, at that time, pause over there. Create will. Okay, I'm going to observe this hunger for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'll give it to the machine. Doesn't matter. Let the machine fulfill its hunger. But for 15 minutes, I'm going to observe with no chattering up here, no right, wrong, good, bad, this, that, etc. Just sensing the anger, just living with, sorry, hunger, not anger, just sensing the hunger, living with the hunger. But if we just run to the burger stall, or what do you call, I was just reading one article, 10 different kinds of vada pav you get in Mumbai. So if we just run to the vada pav stall, then that's the end of the matter. We've given in to the will of the machine. We've given in to the will of the machine. Now, the moving center. And we must work with the moving center. For old people, it's a little easier. For young people, it's not so easy. You know, some years ago, I had to give a talk in Google. So then we were taken on a tour of the Google headquarters in Mountain View. And I was shocked by their desks, the Google desk. So the Google desk can go up like this. So if you want to get out of your chair and work standing, you can work standing, right? And the desk can come right down like this. You can sleep on the like this, and you can look at the desk like this and work. So whatever way, the desk adapts to the will of your moving center. Right? And for me, it was something new. A desk meant a desk in school. We never had chairs like this in school, right? So it's just those ordinary wooden chairs. And this was, I mean, the height of luxury. Anyway, we've been standing for a couple of hours, or we've been sitting for a couple of hours. And supposing if you're like me, 66 years old, after a couple of hours sitting, you'll feel your joints are a little cramped, you know. And you'll say, let me give a little bit of what you call movement to my joints. And that is the time where we should pause. Let the moving center ask for you to stretch the joints. Don't stretch the joints. If you've been standing for a couple of hours and you want to sit, just hold on to that posture for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Try to remain in that in-between space, right? Don't give in to the will of the machine. You're not going to fall ill in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? You won't get arthritis in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? But what you call, you'll create a new will which will overpower the will of the machine. This is the will of the soul, the will of the essence. These are small things which we can do. So we can be very inventive. We can find different ways throughout the day of what you call increasing our will. Yes, we will build will in trifles. Okay, now we are going to take this in a little different way. Veg means motion, speed. Samveg means, it is a prefix added to this verb, which means motion in harmony. It could be very fast, doesn't have to be slow, but in a harmonious way. Tīvra means the intensity of the motion. The intent. So tīvra-samvegānām. Samvegānām means of those whose motion is of this kind. Āsannaḥ. For them, it is near. For them, the goal of sampragnat samadhi is nearby. Now, samveg, that is, there is intensity and there is speed. And there must be a balance between intensity and speed. Only then will there be a harmony. You know, many times I go to teach the refining exercises. And, you know, I'm very frightened of people who phone me the next day and they tell me, can we do it more than once in a day? Now, you just learned yesterday. Please do it once a day. Go forward in motion in a harmonious way, right? And there are people who will say, can we do it 3 times in a day? And they do it with intensity for 6 months and then they give it up and then they'll go to something else, art or living or something of that sort they'll go to. As if anybody can teach the art of living. Art comes from inside, right? So they forget something and they go somewhere else. What has happened? The intensity was there, the speed was there, the balance was not there. In Gujarati, we call this not samveg, we call it as aveg. I don't know what you call it in Hindi. Aveg. Aveg means an extreme speed or an extreme intensity. So here he is giving us this word, some between, there must be a balance over here. tīvra-samvegānām āsannaḥ. Now, if the balance is not there between intensity and speed, then it will lead to imbalances. It will lead to a lot of imbalances. And I have come across people with a lot of imbalances in my life, right? I have seen situations where people did it with such intensity that even before the body was ready, they awakened the Kundalini energy and it did all kinds of imbalances because they did not go in a proper, balanced, rhythmic, harmonious way. And that is very important. And that is why Tavariaji goes in a very slow way. You first learn the rhythmic breathing. Bring rhythm in your breath. Before trying anything else, bring rhythm in your breath. That is the platform. So we have, when you sing a song, we have 2 things. We say Geet and Sangeet. So Sangeet is a harmonious singing. It is a balanced singing, a rhythmic singing in that, right? So intensity should be there, but not blind intensity. And like I said, in samveg, there is joy and delight. Then if we just take the normal word asana, and even though this is not the right meaning, but we will take it in this way, we use the Hindi word asan. If it is done in a balanced, with balance of intensity and speed, then it is very easy. Asan, it is very easy. If it is done in a balance of speed and intensity, then the very practice is very easy. Nothing is difficult, right? Of course, the word asana means near. It does not mean easy, but I've just taken an offshoot this way. Now, sometimes it has to be done at the right moment. At the right moment. If we do it at the wrong moment, one of my, when I was in college, in Bombay, I did my college in Mumbai, and I used to love to go to the races every week. And if you observe the horses racing, then as the finishing post is coming close and you're there at a distance away, the jockey just touches the whip like this twice or thrice, and the horse gives a final spurt of speed, and he comes to the winning post. It is as if, a mile race is going in a certain rhythm, and at the final moment he gives that certain speed. This certain speed is what we call in spirituality a super effort. So we are moving in a certain way, and at a certain point we know that a gap is going to come in an octave, something is going to, and that is where we use the whip. And he doesn't whip the horse to hurt the horse. He's not whipping the horse to hurt the horse. He's just giving the horse the touch that this is the time. The real good jockeys in those days, and the horse would give that final spurt of speed. Similarly, in this case, if we know exactly that now we are coming to a gap, from tomorrow boredom may creep in, tomorrow guests are coming, tomorrow there's somebody's marriage, and I know a gap in my practices is going to come. At that time, I just touch the whip a little, I wake up a little early, finish my practices, go for the wedding, and I overcome that gap which is going to come. So for those whose intensity is harmonious and the speed is in rhythm, the goal is very near. tīvra-samvegānām asana. I'm take this in another way. I thought I'll finish early. Now, Patanjali is saying for those whose intensity is strong and samveg, speed is in proper harmony, the goal is near, asana, near. Now, till now, and in most commentaries on the Yoga Sutra, most commentators have taken near, asana, as near in time, right? Near in time, but it doesn't have to be near in time. It could be near in space, near in space. So, supposing what we have been talking about now is that if samadhi is going to come after 3 years, by proper management of speed and intensity, it may become near by 2 years or 1 year, something of that sort. Right? So we have taken near as in near in time. But there's another kind of nearness, a nearness in space, in psychological space. You may be sitting next to me, and I can tell you, you are not here, you're far away. Can you get what I'm trying to say? So in the psychological space, in physical space, you are very near. But in psychological space, you may be far away, right? You understand what I'm trying to say? And this happens many times between husbands and wives or whatever, Wife is telling the husband, where are you? Are you over here? You're sitting with me, but in psychological space, maybe you're roaming in America or something like that, right? So where are we in psychological space? Now, here, there is a key over here. There's a kind of paradox over here, not a key. There's a kind of paradox over here. And this paradox, the Guru, he says that which you are searching for, you already are. That which you are searching for, you already are. Can you see the paradox over here? So now intellectually, if Mr. Tavaria Sahib tells me that you are already, what do you call it? This was one of his favorite sentences. You are already structured in transcendence. Why do you want to look for transcendence? You're already structured in what you're looking for, you already are. Why do you want to look for it? You know, I'm talking of 1970s, and Rajneesh ji, Osho, Bhagwan Rajneesh, he had a camp in Dwarka. And the camp was for 3 days. And for 3 days, every day outside the camp, there would be a board. Like, you know, in the newspapers in the old days, I haven't seen a newspaper in a long time. We used to get the thought for today. So there would be a thought. So for the whole camp, the thought for today would be there. And for that day, the thought for today was, Paramatma bhitar hai, usko baar khojo hi mat. The divine is within you. Don't look for the divine outside. Now, Ram Dulare Bapu in those days was in Dwarka. And he used to go for a walk every morning. And he used to pass this place, the hall where the camp, the meditations and all were going on. And he saw this board there, and it was written, Paramatma bhitar hai, usko baar khojo hi mat. So then he took the chalk was lying there, so he cancelled it like this. And he wrote beneath that, Paramatma sarvatra hai, use khoje hi kyun? Right? If God is everywhere, why do you want to look for him? So this is the paradox. This is the paradox. That what we are looking for, we already are. We already are. Only the veil of Maya has to be lifted. So, but we understand this intellectually. But when it comes to our heart, when we can really see that what we are looking is sitting on the chair next to us. I'll just quote from Kabir. This is Kabir. Are you looking for me? I am in the seat next to you. My shoulder is rubbing against yours. When you look for me, you will find me instantly because I am right there. You will find me in the tiniest house of time, Kabir is saying. You will find me in the tiniest house of, why 2 years? Why 3 years? What is the tiniest house of time? 1 second or a millionth of a second? You will find me in the tiniest house of time, Kabir is saying. Right? So he says, but intellectually we understand this. A point in our practices come when in our heart we feel that it is right near, sitting next to us. And this movement from the head to the heart, where we feel that he is sitting next to us, that is done by tīvra-samvegānām, to bring that psychological state of intensity. When that psychological state of harmonious intensity comes, we will see that he's just been sitting next door to us all the time. We never had to really look for him. But we have to reach. So we can take this sutra in these two ways. One, that it brings the goal nearer, and in the other, the goal is already achieved. We just have to know about it, but that can be known only in a certain psychological state. Can we create that inner psychological state of intensity, harmonious speed, harmonious gati, harmonious intensity inside? And when we are in that state of harmonious intensity, he's already there sitting next to us. So we can take this sutra in two ways. I just thought I'll take the other side, that nearness not in time, but nearness in space also. Right? Now, one more thing I'd like to talk about over here. Samadhi itself is multidimensional, but we will take two dimensions of Samadhi. One, that Samadhi is the deepest form of relaxation. So we relax, we relax the mind. It is free of thought, free of emotion. As we go into a deeper state of relaxation, there is no content in our consciousness. And in that experience of deep relaxation, we experience Samadhi, right? And this state happens. So in that state of deep relaxation, what remains is just the seeing consciousness, the perceiving consciousness. It is not perceiving something, just the act of perception is there. Now, this state is achieved in deep sleep. But in deep sleep, there is no perceiving consciousness, right? So in deep sleep, we are in that state of ultimate relaxation without the perceiving consciousness. If we can bring about the perceiving consciousness, of course, there are some techniques to do that, then we experience Samadhi. But this is one dimension of Samadhi, one dimension of Samadhi. There's another dimension of Samadhi where we can increase, we do a certain meditation where we increase brain activity to a very high state. Supposing our thinking is going at a brain, what you call wave pattern of 40 waves per minute, 25 to 40 waves, which they call the beta state. Can we increase it to 100 waves per second? Sorry, 25 to 40 waves per second. Can we increase it to 100 waves per second and still remain balanced in that state? Of course, we are not balanced in 25 to 40. The monkey is chattering all the time. But that is another extreme of Samadhi. So Samadhi is a multi-dimensional thing, right? And in one, there is deep relaxation. In the other, there is highest tension, but through consciousness, we have relaxed that highest tension while holding on to the tension. It is like Yoga Nidra, where you can close your fist and still relax the fist and close it more and relax it more, close it more. So more tension and more relaxation within the tension. So by increasing the tension in the mind and reaching a state where there's paramount tension, and then just watching it from far in a balanced way, we digest the tension. So one is we are free of tension, the other we digest all the tension. And both these can be a different, what you call dimensions of Samadhi. Like I said, Ram Dulare Bapu was my guru for 7 years. And much before I met Tavaria Sahib. And he had this art of creating the peak of tension. He would put you in such a situation, you'd be the peak of tension. I remember once we had to spend the night on Nagpur station. And we had in those days, in India, we had those big beddings. And we would open out the bedding on this railway platform and go to sleep on the railway platform. Right? And the train was at 5:40 or something in the morning. At exactly 5:20 or something, the train came, and there was 8 or 10 of us, and we were looking for Bapu, and he was nowhere to be seen. Right? And we're looking for him, all of us in the highest tension. The train is going to go away. The train is going to go away. Right? The train went away. And then he came, oh, the train went away. Right? And he's looking at everyone's faces. He wants to know whether anyone digested the tension or everybody got identified with the tension. Right? And he used to play these kinds of tricks. All those 7 years went in these kinds of tricks he used to play on us. And of course, then you have to go in a local train. And I won't go into it, but he would push us into the local train because there would be no way to get entry in those local trains. Anyway, so you have samadhi, the two dimensions of samadhi, the deepest relaxation and the highest tension, and still you digest the highest tension and be a witness to it. Yeah. So 2 dimensions of samadhi. Now I'm going to take one as tīvra and one as veg. One dimension as tīvra and one as veg. So we'll put this into brain waves. Now brain waves have amplitude and frequency. Amplitude is the distance from the crest, that is the peak, to the trough, right? Right. And frequency is the number of waves in a second. Number of waves in a second. Now, let us start with negative emotion. When we are in negative emotion, I'm getting very angry on you, right? Or in any negative emotion, the brain waves are of very small amplitude and very high frequency. It's moving very fast, right? Number of waves per second is very fast. Now, when a brain wave has less amplitude, it has less holding power, less force. I'll just try to explain a little bit of what is force. Now, I want to push this, so I have to have a certain amount of force in my finger to push this. Now, if I keep on applying energy, but I'm not able to push it, then I spend energy without creating force. Is this clear to everyone? Force means that some amount of work has been done. I've displaced this from here to here. Achha, sorry, I'll repeat it. You could not see, right? So just hold it for some time. Right. So I keep on pushing this, but it does not move. Then I'm spending energy, but there is no work done. For work done, there must be force. That is, I spend energy, but the energy creates a force. Can you understand? Then only it will move. Now, for any spiritual practice, we don't need just energy. We need force. Supposing I want to sit in meditation, I need a certain force to hold me in meditation, to keep the thoughts away, to hold my body in a certain posture. If I don't have that force, I'm going to scratch here, I'm going to scratch here, I'm going to think about what the Prime Minister said yesterday, etc. Can you get what I'm trying to say? So any spiritual practice, from meditation to self-remembering to self-observation, it needs application of force, not just energy. Right? The energy must be converted into force. The more amplitude a brain wave has, the more force I have. Tīvrata. The more tīvrata I have. That is, I can now hold many things together. I am angry. But if I have a high amplitude brainwave, then I can hold that anger. I don't have to express that anger upon you. I can observe that anger. But if the brainwave is of low amplitude, then it is going to move fast and I'll throw out all the anger upon you and then I'll become aware of what it is. Right? So the first thing about for a spiritual seeker is to increase his intensity, his capacity of holding. If he increases his frequency, right, without increasing the amplitude of the brainwave, if the amplitude is small and he keeps on repeating the same thing, nothing is going to happen. He has to first increase his holding power. This holding power amplitude in what you call is called as Dharna. Dharna, the power of holding, the power of holding. So as we don't express negative emotions, as we stop leakages of energy from the body-brain system, as we stop unnecessary talking, as we stop unnecessarily becoming victims of memory, as we pause seduction of attention. So all this works together to increase the amplitude of our brainwave. And then we learn to rotate it by certain meditative practice at higher frequencies. Then if the amplitude is big, we can experience relaxation. And if we can repeat the same amplitude at higher frequencies, we can experience the highest tension. We can experience both the dimensions of samadhi, the tīvra dimension and the vague dimension. And we can balance the two tīvra-samvegānām asana. I'm just trying to bring you a different aspect of this sutra. Now, our Upanishads, some of the Upanishads, they start with what is prana, especially the Prashna Upanishad starts with what is prana. And it says that, I hope I'm coming across in all this, yeah, right? It says that this whole universe is nothing but prana, nothing but prana. In yoga, we call it as Chitti Shakti. Tavariya Sahib used to call it as Chitti Shakti. And it says prana takes two forms, pran and rai. This universe is composed of different structures. Those structures are made out of prana, but once they become a structure, they are called as rai. But what remains as prana is the original prana. All structures need fuel to run. All structures need fuel to run. So, supposing it's my body, then my body needs food to run, right? My body is a structure made out of prana, but the fuel which goes into the body is prana. So rai is my structure and the fuel which goes into my structure is prana. So the Prashna Upanishad says everything is prana, but prana takes two dimensions, the dimension of structure and the dimension of petrol for that structure. Right? And he says, this is how the universe runs. This is how the universe runs. There are structures and there is petrol to the structure. The petrol could be food, the petrol could be breath. That is different, right? A subtle petrol. Now, as petrol becomes more subtle, the frequency increases, eases. It becomes, the frequency increases. But as petrol is more crude, like the crude in this thing, the frequency is less. Can you understand? So Prashna Upanishad says everything is prana. Nothing is anything apart from prana. I'll just take 10 minutes more. Yep. So it says prana is the cause of both electricity and magnetism. The structure is held together by magnetism. Any structure in the Gita, this magnetism which holds everything together is called as sangat. Sangat. Can you see? So any structure in the universe is held together by magnetism. And that structure runs on the fuel of electricity, whether it is petrol or whatever. So electricity and magnetism are two poles of prana, are two aspects of prana. That is, in a different sense, we can say that prana contains both electricity and magnetism. That is why you'll understand the value of pranayam. The value of pranayam. Of course, it has to be taught rightly. Now, magnetism is the negative pole of prana. Electricity is the positive pole of prana. The property of the positive pole of prana is to look for the negative pole. So there is a flow of electrons from the positive pole to the negative pole, and this is the principle of electricity. In this whole universe, there is a positive pole and there is a negative pole. As in the earth, there is a positive pole and there is a negative pole. One day we'll take the prana of the earth, how it circulates in our body, what are these poles, what do they mean, what is southern hemisphere, what is northern hemisphere. It's a very, very interesting thing. Very interesting. And when we look at these from the eyes of yoga, it opens up so much within us. Anyway, so there is this flow from the positive pole to the negative pole. When the yogi is able to make the sahasrara into the negative pole, when it is able to give the sahasrara a negative charge, the positive charge from the sex center runs up and fills up the sahasrara. He does not have to do anything to pull the energy up. He has to only create the right pole. Electricity has the property of constant movement, frequency, vague. Magnetism has the property of creating a field. It creates a structure. It creates a field, right? So it has the power of holding things in that field, or the power of tīvra, the intensity of how much it can hold in that field. So when these two properties are used in harmony, that is samveg between tīvra and veg, when they're used in proper harmony, right, we create a certain electromagnetic force. Our soul is also an electromagnetic field. Our atma is also a kind of electromagnet, original electricity, right? If we can create the right electromagnetic force by right use of intensity, amplitude, and right use of frequency, wave, then we are able to balance both of them, and we are able to affect the soul, allow the soul to wake up from its, what do you call, identification, and make a journey towards the Atma. So just by these two things, I just thought I'd take this a little, right, and try to explain that we have a North Pole and we have a South Pole within us. We have an electromagnetic field of the body-brain system. That is the electromagnetic field of the machine, the ego. We have an electromagnetic field of the essence of the soul, and each one affects the other. And by creating the right, right harmony between the two poles, that is the pole of magnetism and the pole of electricity, we can bring a kind of, we can bring a kind of shock to the soul and try to wake it up from its long sleep of identification. And so that is just one more part of this sutra. So we'll end here. tīvra-samvegānām āsannaḥ. There's one lady who has been asking me some questions on WhatsApp. It's very, very difficult on WhatsApp for me to answer all questions, because by the end of the day, most of my WhatsApp messages just scroll down. I'll just take her question if you don't mind. I think she's a part of this group. If she's here, I would like her to repeat the question so everyone can hear. If she's I don't know if she's attending the talk today. Her name is? Oh, I've not sent you the name. Oh. Is she here?
Not that I know of, sir. If the person here is here, please unmute yourself. Induji, you have unmuted yourself. Are you the person?
Her name is Indu Kapahi.
Yes, sir. So yes, she has unmuted herself.
You know her?
I don't know. I don't know her, sir. Induji, can you please start your video?
Indu Kapahi, do you know?
No, sir. But she has unmuted. She is here.
Is
She's
she here?
here.
Oh, my speaker was off. Right. I just started it.
Induji, can you start speaking or can you please switch on your video? There is no response from her, sir.
Should I repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, you can repeat it. Yeah. You have a microphone?
Yeah, I have, but I will repeat it here. Please clarify. My son shouts at me. What's the cause of cause? I have sown the seed of anger in him. Or anger is in him, so he vents it. If I have, how, why? What is the cause in this case? Sir, appreciate and look forward.
Okay, I think we are moving in. She's asking that her son shouts at her. And what is the cause and cause of this? Because we had talked about this, I think last time or the time before that. I think she's moving in the wrong direction to see the cause, because there are many causes, and behind many causes is the cause of cause. It takes years of self-observation. So we cannot move in that direction. We don't want to understand what the cause is through the logical mind in this way. What we have to observe is that when he shouts at us, when my son shouts at me, what is my reaction? Now, if my son shouts at me and my immediate reaction is of dislike, then I've already sown a seed of violence. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? The cause does not lie over there. The cause lies deep within us, but to reach to that cause, we have to start from where we are now. Now, if I pause at that dislike and say this dislike is automatic, I don't want to go further from here, then I am not thinking about what has happened. If I start thinking about what has happened, he is my son. I have brought him up with so much love. I have fulfilled all his needs. I have looked after him in such a way. And is this the way he treats me? Then I am repeating that dislike many times. I'm going into a cycle of self-pity, and I'm sowing another seed of self-pity. Can you, I don't know if I'm coming across in this, right? Try to see how karma works. Right? So the thing is that it is his, it is his mechanical action. Man is a machine, and a machine will only do what it is programmed to do. And this acceptance has to be there. If my son is getting angry with me, if my son is insulting to me, then a machine is insulting to me. Try to accept that first. There can be no progress without acceptance. And the first acceptance is to stop at dislike. Don't go further than dislike. I can understand dislike coming automatically. In a later stage, we will overcome the dislike also. Right? And try to change your reaction from a reaction of dislike, from a reaction of saying, I have done so much for you, of self-pity, this is the way you treat me, a reaction of self-pity, transform it into a reaction of understanding that a machine cannot do anything except what it is geared to do. Whatever the mechanical gears are, it only does that. These are all psychological gears. If we change our inner reaction, he is not going to change overnight. It will take a few years. But as we change our inner reaction, slowly a new intelligence will come to us how to tackle it with him, how to work with him. We have to bring an active patience. a new will to wait for that intelligence to come down. In Gujarati, we say that it does not awaken from inside. It comes from a higher source. It descends, right? So the first thing is not to react mechanically. If he's mechanical, I'm also mechanical, then just two machines are meeting. Two machines cannot change. It is not possible. But if I bring consciousness to the situation, then after a few months, something will tell, if I speak to him this way, it may open a little window. If I speak to him in this way, it may open a little window. And through that window, I'll be able to have a small conversation with him. Don't have a very long conversation. Start with small tidbits, right? And slowly move in. But please understand, on the spiritual part, we are not bothered about what the other is doing. We are bothered about our reactions to what the other is doing, right? And this is Dr. Nichols' very famous statement. You cannot change the events of life. You can only change your reactions to the events of life. In changing your reactions to the events of life over a period of time, your structure changes, your being changes. And your being is that which attracts life. That the life which you attract will change. But this will take a long period of time. But it is something which we must use in life to awaken our consciousness, to awaken our will, to awaken our patience. So that is all I can say about this, right? Vasubhen no phone હતો, પૂછી જો કઈ પ્રશ્ન હતો એને.
Jitendra, can you? Yes. Please go ahead. Unmute yourself, Jitendra.
Hello, sir. First of all, thank you very much, sir, for sending medicines for my wife, and I received it today only.
Okay.
Am I audible? Audible, na?
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, my question is about space. You very well explained about space. So actually, I was practicing to connect with the space and the space around me, what we call it as physical space. So I try to feel the same space inside me. So sometimes I feel connected with that space, but you talked about psychological space. So what is the difference between psychological space and the space around in which our body is present right now? So I just wanted to have little clarity on that.
This is physical space. In the Shastras, it is called as Bhutakash. Bhut means the five elements. The space in which the five elements are playing. Bhutakash. But there is psychological space, right? We may be sitting next to each other, but if you're daydreaming of being in America, physically in Bhutakash, we are next to each other, but in Chit-akash, psychological space, we are
Different.
Far away.
Far away.
Far away. So there is physical space, there is psychological space. There is, what do you call, spiritual space.
So there are different types of space.
Chidakash, but we won't talk about that today. I will talk about it some other time, right? Chidakash, spiritual space. Bhutakash, physical space. Chit-akash, psychological space. Chidakash, spiritual space, right? So in Bhutakash, we are sitting next to each other, right? But in Chitakash, you are daydreaming of America. We are far away. And if I am daydreaming of China, we are so far away, right?
And sir, like in physical space, I'm able to observe my body or my actions. So
Right.
in same way, how I can observe in psychological space.
So you look inside. We have one more sense called the mind, and the mind can see inside when it takes attention inside, right?
I'll try to do that.
Right. So how does the Gita start? Arjun tells Krishna, "Take my chariot between the two armies. Sena yoho ubhayoho madhye ratham sthapya achyuta." Hey Achyut, मेरे रथ दोनों सेना के बीच में ले जाओ. The physical space and the psychological space. So I can see both. Right?
Thank you.
Sir, is it self-observing
Yes,
that when
it
we
is the
observe?
yes, it is the practice of self-observation.
Okay.
The only thing he could not do non-judgmental self-observation.
G. Rakesh. Yes, there is one
राजन
person.
भाई
Like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
आपको थैंक यू वेरी मच। अभी अभी ये किताब आई, इसलिए 2 मिनट के लिए मुझे जाना पड़ा नीचे, वो लेके आया। अभी अभी आई चेतरिया वाली किताब आपने भेजी, तवरिया साहब वाली।
Right, right.
केतो इसका तो ना, so nice of you and thank you very much.
Thank you. All the best. All the best.
Thank you. So do I pay something for this?
No.
No, sir. No, sir.
नहीं? अच्छा।
Yes, Vatsala ji.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Sir,
Vatsala
may
ji.
I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Sir, today's session, I feel it should have been taught to me 30 years ago. It have made a big difference. I would be far up the ladder of spiritual progress. It has gone home deep. And as you said, what you say throws light in some dark corners of the mind. Incidentally, it also has thrown light in other corners of the mind. I get further insight over and above what you have
Very
been
good.
telling.
Very good. Very
So
beautiful.
that is leading to a lot of change, and I'm aware of your teachings during the course of the day. So it is making a big difference to me. That's one thing. Only thing I wish I had. You have brought this esoteric scripture to as building blocks of daily living, which is an amazing thing. Normally, scriptures are elite. They are in the realm of intellectual understanding, but you have taught it so well. We can apply it in our daily life. That's a big, wonderful learning. I have made a note of every little example you said. It's very different. You read the Yoga Sutra, you don't get this exposition unless I listen to you. Sir, I have one doubt. You have said that we have to, the will of the soul, spiritual. I get your point very well. But all these efforts that we make, isn't it equivalent to, I'm a gardener, isn't it equivalent to making the soil fertile? Once we make the soil fertile, will seeds be planted or we have to plant?
The seed is already there.
You are giving it the condition for it to sprout.
Yes, we are allowing it to sprout. I don't know if you remember your botany in school, but what were the conditions for air, water, and suitable temperature? If you remember school botany, the conditions for sprouting of a seed, air, water, and suitable temperature. That's it.
Basically, I'm a physics student, so I understood your wavelength frequency analogy very well.
Right.
Sir, there's one last question. Sir, can we get the bare text of the Yoga Sutras? It's not available anywhere because what Tavariaji has said, because the Yoga Sutra sequences in Swami Vivekananda's book, Swami Chinmayananda, they are all different order. So I find it difficult to read the text in sequence, your sutras.
Okay. Have you got Tavariya Sahib's Yoga? Have you got Tavariya Sahib's Yoga Sutra?
No, I think Mr. Sangvi sent the PDF to me, but I would like to have a printed text.
Okay, just can you send Ketav or me a message?
Yes, sir.
And I'll see that we are out of printed text, but I'm getting another lot of 80 in a few days' time. So I'll definitely send one. Whoever needs them, I'll send them across. Right?
Yes, sir.
We'll arrange.
Great blessing. Thank you, sir.
Can you just write down? He's just writing down a phone number. The name of the person is Prashant Bhai. He looks after everything of the whole trust.
Okay.
So if you can call him and register your number and everything over there, he'll see that it is sent to you. 997.
Sir, Vatsala ji and all the others who wants the book, I will write down Prashant Bhai's number in the group. People can contact him and
Please
get the
do.
book from him whenever
Yeah.
the book is available.
Because I will
Okay,
forget,
Vatsala
he
ji.
won't forget.
I have put across the number many a time, but I will do it one more time.
I think I'm in touch with him.
Yes,
Right.
great then, great.
Yes, yes, yes,
Thank
yes,
you. He has the prisms also, if anybody wants the prism also.
Right.
Yeah.
yes.
Any other question that we
There
have?
was one question here, no?
Uh,
Can
Kalpana
we,
ji, yes, sir, please. Please.
can
Sorry.
just somebody here has asked a question? Can we make effort without a physical presence of teacher? I don't think you need a physical presence. Once you've understood something intellectually, start working upon it. Right? Life is the greatest teacher. Life is the biggest guru. Each moment life will teach us. Right? So don't worry about that. Just start implementing what, if you're saying non-expression of negative emotions, start implementing it. As you make a space between the reaction and not reacting, suddenly life will be teaching you in that space automatically. The inner teacher will come to teach you. Don't bother about that. Just start.
Kalpana ji, please come in.
No, I just namaste. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Nice meeting you, Hemaji, and even Rajanji. Namaste. No, I don't have a question. It's just that I'm just thankful to you very much for your teachings. And it's really been wonderful that I wasn't there for the last 2 sessions, but back again. So back again on track. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box.
Yes, once I observe that I am in self-pity, right? Don't feed the self-pity, right? Now, supposing I'm not well and you phone me and it immediately comes to my mind that to tell you that I've not been well for 2 days, you got time to phone now only. Now, this is feeding the self-pity. So pause over there, right? Say something else which does not feed the self-pity. Otherwise, we mechanically go into a pattern where we are feeding the self-pity. Like when you were ill, I did so much for you, right? And now that I'm ill for last 2 days, you got time only on the 3rd day to phone me. So then I'm feeding my self-pity. Don't feed the self-pity once you observe it.
राजेन भाई,
Right.
जैसे आपने कहा उसके लिए कि आपके वो जो गुरुजी थे राम दुलारे बापू, उन्होंने कहा कि प्रभु तो सर्वत्र है, इसलिए खोजो मत.
उन्हें खोजो मत किया, उसे खोजे ही क्यों?
राइट.
Right.
तो तुलसीदास ने एक लिखा है जो रामायण, उसमें लिखा है सिया राम मैं सब जग जानी, करम प्रणाम जोर जुग पानी. दोनों हाथ जोड़ के सबको एक साथ नमस्ते करता हूँ, सारे राम हैं. तो लाइक दैट थॉट इज देयर, बट वो आए कैसे फीलिंग, ये मेन इंपॉर्टेंट चीज.
From the movement of the thought from here to here,
right,
it's very short, but it's a long journey.
Right.
To really feel that he is
Very
next door to us.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Shall we?
Ji sir. Ji sir. Ji sir.
Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karvavahi, tejasvina vaditmatsu, ma vidvishavahi. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi.